From the Weather NorCal Command Center, this is your morning update.
Kent's Meats and Grocery is much more than a grocery store. We carry a full line of quality meats, local and organic vegetables, and a large variety of fish, Green Mountain Smart Control pellet grills, and a full deli case of sandwiches and side dishes.
Good morning, everyone. We take a look at the visibility from early this morning. Now, don't pay attention to the Chico where it says 0, but we are starting to see a fog for parts of Trinity County as we would expect, and we have seen over the last few mornings. Now, we may see some fog developing here as we go through the morning hours, especially to the south, places like Chico, Willows, and Oroville. In fact, you can see in Oroville, the visibility is down to about 8 miles, and we have lower visibility as you head to the south, out towards Sacramento and even south of the Sacramento region. So the visibility is something we'll be watching here. You can see here early this morning out at Sundial Bridge Drive on Highway 44 in Redding, not seeing any fog as of yet. That's also the case in Red Bluff early this morning. We also take a look at the Chico area, and this is Highway 99 at Neal Road. We're not seeing much in the way of fog there either, but again, that could change here as we get closer and closer to sunrise. So this is one of those things that you just have to be aware of the fact that that fog could develop, and it may impact your morning commute. Now, there is also, just like yesterday morning, a freezing fog advisory for western Siskiyou County, in particular for Scott Valley. You've got those water droplets within the fog that can make contact with the freezing surface and can create ice, especially on bridges and overpasses. So just be aware of that for your morning commute if you're in Scott Valley. Take a look at this, a beautiful shot from Oregon Mountain looking down at the Weaverville Valley. Beautiful shot from Philip. Want to thank Philip for sharing this image of the fog as seen from Oregon Mountain. And you can share your photos just like Philip from the free Weather NorCal app. You can see it right here on the morning show. Also, it'll be debuted on the morning show, Coffee with Krueger, at 6:30 in the morning as well. All right, let's get you out the door this morning. For those of you that are in a hurry and just want a quick look at your forecast for today, here you go. Now, as mentioned, we could see some patchy fog in parts of the valley. So your morning commute, you may run into some of that, but I think most of it will be along the coast, even parts of Modoc County, western Siskiyou County, and even parts of Trinity County, seeing some of that fog out there this morning as well. Now, we've been talking about the big ridge of high pressure. You see the storm moving up and over that ridge. You can see the arc in the clouds. That's that building ridge of high pressure. Now, I think the forecast model has been a little overly aggressive on that, the density of that fog, really. But really what it is picking up on is that the ingredients are certainly there. We've got the calm winds. We've got the low-level moisture. We've got the high pressure creating the temperature inversion. They're all there. It's just a matter of whether that fog decides to develop or not. Now, we can see here, we go into the 11 o'clock hour Wednesday. So Wednesday night into Thursday, yeah, you've got that potential for more fog developing. Heading out to the Mount Shasta Ski Park, you're at 38 inches out at the top of Douglas. All the trails are open. It's groomed and it's got that firm snow in the morning. It tends to soften up a bit here as you go through the afternoon hours. All right, here is your forecast for your Tuesday. Temperatures in the basically low to mid 60s for your daytime highs. For areas that see fog, this is where you tend to see those cooler temperatures as a result. All right, taking you into tonight, we've got temperatures in the low 40s for the valley, 20s and 30s for the higher elevations, and mid to upper 30s for the coast. Let's take a look at your 7-day forecast for the valley. Now again, fog pending each morning. Your temperatures are going to be impacted by that, but for the most part, it is going to be warmer. For areas that don't see fog in the valley, you're talking mid to upper 60s. If you see that fog and it persists through the day, now you're talking temperatures more like the 50s for those daytime highs. The coast, temperatures generally in the upper 50s, although warmer by Thursday, Friday in the low 60s. Inland, you're going to see some of that patchy fog as well, especially in the morning hours and even into Trinity County as well. For Siskiyou County, once again, it's mainly western Siskiyou County that's seeing the bulk of any fog and even that freezing fog, as you saw that potential in Scott Valley, for example. Otherwise, temperatures upper 50s to low 60s for Siskiyou County. Looks like upper 50s for Modoc County and low 50s out in the eastern mountains for Susanville. So we do have the cold mornings, they continue, although they're not as cold as they have been. We've got that ridge of high pressure keeping temperatures up a little bit here. Now we're going to be looking at mountain valley fog in some areas, especially say Chico southward into the Sacramento region. But as you head north into Red Bluff and Redding, I think the chances for that fog developing are slimmer, but don't let that make you think that it won't happen at all, because there certainly is that possibility. Not only this morning, but the next several mornings as well, because high pressure is building this week, and that's one of the contributing factors to that potential for fog. But we are seeing signs that this overall trend is breaking down next week. As far as rain is concerned, well, we're going to get into that in your deeper dive forecast here, sponsored by Shasta Hearing Aids.
Hearing isn't just about sound, it's about being part of every moment. This isn't your grandparents' hearing aid, it's a smart hearing aid for modern life. It's Bluetooth enabled, easy to control from your phone with your personal prescription, delivering the clarity you need. All that technology at half the cost of competitors, so you never miss a moment worth hearing. With our Here For You program, you get personal care and support every step of the way. This is what quality care sounds like.
Well, with that lack of rain and that snow, I wanted to take a look at where we're standing as far as the rain and snow is concerned. Let's start with the season rainfall across the region. Now, for the most part, everyone is still well above 100%, with this weird anomaly in Crescent City not seeing as much rainfall during these storms. And partially because the storms hasn't really been coming in from the west, they've been coming more from the south. That tends to favor places like the valley getting more of that rainfall. However, we're still very healthy for the most part across Northern California when we take a look at the overall season, which started October 1st. Snow cover, not as healthy as you would think. In fact, we take a look, just the statewide average, we're looking at 81% of where we should be for this time of the year. And you can see Northern Sierra, I mean, the farther south you go, the better. The farther north you go, the worse, right? 65% normal to date for Northern Sierra and Trinity, 84% for Central Sierra, still just barely over 100% for the Southern Sierra. So yeah, I mean, we could certainly use more snow, and we could use more rain, really. We don't want to see these prolonged periods of heavy rainfall, despite the fact that we did see a lot of rainfall over the last several weeks. Now, the ridge of high pressure I've been talking about, you can clearly see it now. This has been building, and you can see it moving. That arc in the clouds, that's the ridge of high pressure. It's building northward, and it's getting stronger. That ridge is what's going to contribute to warmer temperatures that many areas will see, especially if you're above the fog. Now, will also help to contribute to the development of that fog, because we're starting to see a temperature inversion begin to take shape. Now, when we see that, that traps the colder air in the Sacramento Valley, and that's when we start to see the potential for fog to develop. Now, another thing you need are those calm winds too, so just a lot of things we have to take into account here. So we look at the big long range picture here. There's that ridge, there's Friday, there's Saturday and Sunday, right? So we still have that ridge of high pressure even through the weekend. But by early next week into the middle of next week, we're going to start to see this ridge of high pressure begin to break down. Now, a couple of factors that we have to take into account here. Number one, we're looking a long ways out. So this is most likely going to change as far as the solution. Number two, if this were to pan out as the way it is, we do expect, bottom line, to see cooler temperatures going through next week. But as far as rain and snow is concerned, not terribly promising. And the reason being is typically storms that come from the north, and especially from Canada, and then they work their way due south, they don't really tend to have a lot of moisture associated with them. You got to get a nice little tap of moisture coming in from the subtropics to really get in that decent rain and snow out of it. So even if we do see any precipitation, which it's not unlikely, but it's something we'll have to watch here. But even if we do see any precipitation, it won't be a lot. So snow, probably not a ton of it. Rain, probably not a lot of rain either. So again, this is a pattern we'll be watching very closely as we progress over the next several days. Now, the fog, this forecast model has been a little overly aggressive. We haven't seen as much fog as it is actually projecting. So if we do see that fog develop, most likely it will burn off by midday. Now, again, getting a little overly overly progressive here or active, but you can see here around Chico. Here's the bottom line. We've got the potential for that fog to develop. Not everyone's going to see it. It's not going to be as bad as it was several weeks ago, but there are going to be some areas that could see the potential for persistent fog through the day. And I'd say the farther south you go, the better the chances of that persistent fog. So places like Chico, for example, yeah, you've got a better chance. But as you start working your way northward into Redding and Red Bluff, I think those chances will be slimmer. And by the way, heading down to Sacramento and even south of that, yeah, most likely dealing with that fog, especially in the morning hours. It tends to lift a little bit here through the afternoon, even if it doesn't completely clear out. Now you can see the winds are a contributing factor, right? Because if we see those winds pick up, that can help to scour out that fog. But overall, the winds are looking fairly calm. There are some indications that by the end of the week we may see a bit of a northerly flow of wind that could be strong enough that should any fog develop, say in the Redding area, that should help to scour that out. But bottom line, we don't have any really big wind events heading our way, but it is something we'll have to kind of watch here. Now, also taking a look at the precipitation outlook from the Climate Prediction Center. This right here is that sign of change. You may remember looking at this, it was showing drier than normal conditions, but as we go into the extended outlook, we are seeing that potential for some light wet weather, not a ton. So you can see here we're at least getting out of the drier than normal conditions here and getting more into the near normal. Essentially what this is, if you want to get technical, it's equal chances of seeing above and below normal rainfall. But bottom line, we're at least breaking away from better chances of below normal rainfall. And that's a good sign. We could use more rain, and certainly we could use more snow. As you saw, that snowpack is below normal in many cases. Now we take a look at the 10-day trend. Fog pending, right? If you don't see fog, you're talking temperatures upper 60s to even around 70 for especially the north end of the valley. But if that fog develops and it persists, now you're talking temperatures in the low to mid 50s for your daytime highs. So that's a significant drop and a significant difference in those temperatures. So again, the fog it's been pretty tricky here as we've been kind of forecasting it even since last week, because again, we've mentioned, and we kind of go off past events, right? We know what happened in the past, and we saw the ingredients that were all there. The forecast is indicating that the ingredients are there for that fog. It just doesn't seem like it's developing. But now we're really getting into that ridge of high pressure taking shape, getting really strong, and we should start to see more of that temperature inversion. So I wouldn't be surprised if we started seeing more fog in the days to come here, especially as we go into your Wednesday, Thursday, and possibly even into your Friday as well. But you can also see those cooler temperatures in that longer range. That's that sign of change of that ridge of high pressure breaking down. All right, we take a look at the lake levels. They are still very healthy. Still, that historical average, 134 to 139% above that historical average. I'd say we're in a pretty good spot right there. Taking a look at the wave heights, they're fairly weak here for today, but they should start to increase as we take you into your Wednesday. No small craft advisories as of yet, but that may change by tomorrow. There's that potential for some of that patchy, dense fog. So here is your neighborhood forecast, sponsored in part by Dignity Health. We're talking temperatures in Trinity County in the low to mid 50s for your daytime highs, 54 degrees for Trinity Center. Now again, we're also seeing that fog in many of the valleys in Trinity County, and that's going to keep those temperatures down a little bit here. Out towards the inland areas, also seeing that potential for some of that fog, and even the fog, at least this morning, along the coast. 58 degrees for Gasquet, 58 degrees for Orleans, and 53 degrees in Hoopa. We're also seeing the potential for western Siskiyou County, and in particular, out towards Scott Valley, Fort Jones, Etna, seeing that fog. 54 degrees in Happy Camp, 44 degrees in McDowell, and Tennant, about 53. Also seeing some fog in parts of Modoc County this morning, so be aware of that, with temperatures mainly in the 50s for your daytime highs. One of the cooler spots will be Cedarville, with a high of about 49. For the Eastern Mountains, there may be some patchy fog there as well. We just haven't seen as much of it. Temperatures in the 40s, 50s, even some 60s for some of the warmer spots. Shingletown, 66, and Paradise, about 63 degrees. Now for the valley to the south, temperatures generally in the 50s. Now again, this is where we have these temperatures are basically taking into account the fact that if you see fog, yeah, you're talking temperatures mid-50s. However, if that fog should not develop, and there's a chance it may not, if it doesn't, then you're talking warmer than the mid-50s. And you can see even out towards Chico, you got 59. Once again, if that fog really dissipates quickly, should it develop, now you're talking temperatures more like the low to mid-60s, but generally looking at those temperatures in the 60s over the next several days. Now, again, we have the slimmer chance of that fog developing to the north, and that's why we got those warmer temperatures in the forecast. 65 degrees for Redding, 64 degrees in Cottonwood, and 63 degrees for Red Bluff. Let's take a look at your 7-day forecast for Redding. Temperatures are getting close to 70. In fact, some of us may even see 70, especially by Thursday, Friday, and then temperatures slowly dropping after that, but generally in the mid-60s for the weekend into early next week. That is your morning update. I'll be back again at noon for a quick check of your forecast. Have yourselves a great morning.